All right, all right, all right. Let's see if this works. Tell me, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, good people of the live stream. Shall we see if this works? Oh, it didn't work. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this, everybody. This is live problem solving. Oh, hey. What's happening? That's how you do that. We got that one working. And we got that one working. And we didn't get this one working, but we never use that one anyway. All right, people. Hello and welcome to the live stream. I am Patrick. What's happening? Okay, here we go. Let's see who we got in here today. A couple of the good people. Santiago, all the way from Canada. What? Christos. Auckland. Okay, we've been over New Zealand before. What else we got there? We got Morgan. What up, my man, Morgan? Sergio keeping that French thing for real. Andrew got the Bangkok thing. My boy Jeff. All right. Ricardo, good podcast or great podcast with Matthew. Yeah, right? He seemed like a nice guy. You know, hard to... He's so young. I mean, the guy was in fucking college last year. He's very young. So, interesting, to say the least. I felt old when I was talking to him. I felt old when I was talking to Paul. But that's one of the good things about cinematography, right? Because Matthew, he's got his own, as much life experience as you can have in however old he is, 21 years. And we just see shit completely different. Completely different. So that's one of the fun things. Okay, let's do. Okay, so this week, should we take a look at what we're doing? This one is from Joe Harris, I believe Joe's name is. And if Joe literally just sent this in, so I imagine you're not far from your computer. Whoops, let's see what we're looking at here. That didn't do it. You think I would remember how to switch? Okay. We got Lady. She's some sort of perfume ad. She goes into the spa. She gets what she wants. And she's out of there. Okay. Let me just quickly, if I go like this, I'm just going to find the other shot because I think it's necessary. Come in here, grab that one. Take that, and we'll start with this one. Okay, so did I miss it? If there's any questions in the stream, this one is going to be a little bit abbreviated because it's now 10:23 here in sunny Western Australia, and I got somebody picking up all of the gear, including the lenses for tomorrow for a mental health ad. Have you ever felt down? Have you ever felt as though you were underappreciated? That's the ad. Okay. Well, I didn't see any questions, so let's take a look-see. What do we got? Actually, before I do that, before I forget, we have got Stuart Weinkauf on the show next week. Stuart is doing some really cool stuff, and he's a super nice guy. And like I said in the podcast, he took time. He was giving his sister's wedding speech, like not a best man speech, but a brother sort of talking about his sister speech. And the call was like he was in his suit when we talked. So it was nice. And it was cool because he wanted to be on the show. We didn't have to do much convincing, which is good because that's happening more and more. People are appreciating that it's fun to talk about this stuff, number one. But number two, also that other people appreciate it. And they do that because you guys reach out to the people that come on the show. I'm sure a couple of people reached out to Matt after the show and said, heard you on the podcast, blah, blah, blah. And people like when they do that. So if you get a chance, definitely reach out to everybody and say, heard you on the show. And things were good. So, Spencer, how was the LF? Well, I only used it on the floor of the rental house. I didn't take it out for a commercial. The plan to use it on the commercial actually shit itself. So which is not uncommon. I mean, tomorrow we're shooting XT. We were supposed to be shooting on 2 minis. Now we're down to 1 camera. Santiago, how often does your day rate increase? It goes up as much as I think people will pay. I used to have this thing where when I was starting out, in Australia, because of the lack of union, I didn't know anybody here. It was hard to set rates for not knowing what people were going to go for. I would just increase it with every production company. So I got in with one production company. I started doing things at that rate. And then, you get into a little groove with people and producers. And you get into that groove and you're doing it for that price. And then another production company calls you. And you say, well, I've got all this work going with this other company. For you guys, instead of $2,000, now it's $2,500. And you just, you hit that send button. And you're like, fuck, I wonder if they're going to go for it. And then they come back and say, yeah, sure, blah, 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 blah. And you go, damn it. I should have gone $3,000. So you just bump it up until someone sends you an email and says, that's way too expensive. And then you go, oh, okay. Well, we can work, I do project by project basis. I always, in my rate thing with new people, I always say, I always try. If the project is interesting, I'll always try and make things work. We can come up with something. Don't hesitate to let me know what you have. And that way I cover the base. Because sometimes I'll just be like, basically I just increase it with every production company until you get to a point where now I know, all the cinematographers that I come on and talk to, where I'm at, generally, if you're doing more than probably $4,500 in a day, you're doing good. You are in the you are probably in the names that we all know category. I don't know if there's any. I'm trying to think if there's anybody that I know that makes more than that. There are a few that are not like super stars. There are lots actually. All depends on what you're doing. But I would say that's the way that the rates get increased. Is you just ask. Okay. Should we take a look at this thing? Ba-da-ba-da. Okay, here. Now, if well, this is a good point. Alec just said $3,000 a day is still killing it. Yeah. It depends. It's all relative, I guess, to how you look at it. $3,000 a day is killing it because you're getting $3,000 a day. It would be really killing it if you worked 15 days a month, 12 months a year. More likely, you're probably going to work, 50 days a year. So that's $150,000. That puts you into the second highest tier, which you're probably looking at 30% just gone. Okay, $100,000, which is still pretty good. But then you got expenses. There's lots of shit to be taken out. Yeah, it is killing it, I guess. It's just more. Yeah, it's killing it. Okay. You're welcome, Santiago. Let's look at this little picture. What do we got here? I'll switch to the pen tool. So this is a lady, if you didn't know, and she is in this forest or in this field, and she's got some roses with her, and she's going to find something to pick, and she's going to take it to the spa store, and the spa store is going to give her some sort of potion or some sort of elixir to make her feel good. So this is one of those commercials where I don't know Joe's situation. I don't know how many people were on this thing. I don't know if he is in the chat and he can let us know. But this, to me, I like how I got the Vimeo spacebar in there. Right? No secret as to how I'm getting these images. Also, I made the fatal error of screenshotting the entire screen. So these images are much larger than they should be, which means the computer's going to be dog shit. This has all the signs of a commercial that you wrote yourself, in that there's some good things, right? If you don't have a lot of money, you keep it exterior, you keep it day, and you keep it down to a single talent. And those are all things that we've done here, which is good, right? That's a good thing because it makes your life a lot easier. But we're going to talk about some of the lighting and maybe some of the framing and choices here, which I think we could polish this up a little bit. Okay, this is the introduction shot, and we'll start here. This shot sort of rolls into focus. If you go on the Patreon page, you can actually see the ad, Joe Harris. Go there, check it out. This one rolls into focus. This was more directorial than cinematography. But let's look, because I posted on Instagram. I don't know if everybody saw. On Instagram, I posted this still, and we had this woman on the DXL shoot. She's spinning around in a circle, and the camera has to spin around, and she puts on these headphones, and she hears the music, and it like whips her away really fast. So we needed this rig to be able to spin around and have the camera spin around, so she would stay static in the frame. And someone was asking, once I put a behind the scenes still, and there's a big 20 by 20 half soft frost that we put over the entire apparatus, this spinning apparatus. And they said, in an earlier podcast episode, I had mentioned that the problem with overheads is you lose level in the foreground or whatever you're covering. The background level stays the same, so it looks a little bit brighter, which then looks like they're under a tree. It looks like there's some fuckery going on. How do you get around that? And this shot is a good example of, even though there is no overhead here, right? There's nothing up here. It's a good example of the look that you don't want, right? In that this is super hot and all blown out. That's what we don't want. And this woman is in shade, right? She's not in direct sunlight. If she was getting hit, this light that's up there in the sky, if she was getting hit with that, there is no way the sky would be blown out. It's blown out because she's not getting hit with that level, which means the background is going to be super hot. So how did we deal with that on the DXL shoot? It's all planning. It's all, okay, once the director says, this is what I want to do, and you say, okay, that's the idea. We're going to get, we'll get the key grip. We'll build this little rig. Now, what are the problems that come with a rig that spins 360 degrees? Well, we can't have any stands on the ground. Okay. Well, we're going to have to find a location where we don't need any stands. Are we just going to embrace full sun? We can't really embrace full sun because it's a fashion, high-end fashion brand. They don't want shitty-ass, super harsh sun lines on their nice young female talent. They want her to look as beautiful as possible, and it has to feel dreamlike. So we set all these things up to make it feel dreamlike, and then you get to the sun part, and you're like, fuck, we can't have this harsh sun. What are we going to do? Okay, we're going to need an overhead. So how can we get an overhead in there without any stands? Well, what about trees? Okay, trees. Where are we going to find trees? Let's go to a park. We're in Los Angeles. Can we find a park? Yeah, there's like 4, and they're all golf courses. So we find one. Then on the Tech Scout, when we're with everybody, okay, still problem solving. We know we don't want that harsh sun. We know we need that overhead in there. Where are we going to find a spot that has trees that we can hang this thing from? We find that spot. We find the perfect spot for the setup. But then looking in the background, all we had was open area. And open area was going to mean lots and lots of level if it was sunny. And it is going to be sunny because it's Los Angeles. So we knew, fuck, we couldn't do that. We have to come up with another solution. We have to find another angle for this to work. So we kept looking around for more trees. Eventually we found a spot as we were walking back to the car where we could hang the overhead and we would be shooting in complete shade. There would be little pockets of highlight, and we could accentuate those pockets of highlight by pulling branches back or by opening things up a little bit. But we'd still get our nice top light. We had to be there at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon for scheduling's sake. So it was going to be the worst possible time. But we were able to shoot into darkness. Here, in this particular shot, this is what we would want to avoid, shooting into this. If you're going to shoot into this and you had an overhead, you would have to get a lot more level coming from the ground this way, so that this skin could be exposed at this level, and this stuff back here could be, a stop and a half down. That's the problem here. And that's when, even when you're shooting in shade, especially if you're starting out before you have access to 20 by overheads, you still need to keep this in mind. You have to expose for what you can't control. And in this situation, what can't we control? The level of the sky. What can we control? Well, we can control where this lady goes, right? We can control where she goes. We could shoot this shot coming the other way. So the camera could be on that side of her. She could be coming out the other way, especially when you're in this low budget world of, 4 or 5 man band. You can do anything. You just tell the client, oh, it didn't work for some specific reason. If they're there, if they're even there. I can't imagine that the client is sitting at a monitor here during this shoot. I think this is you out there by yourself, which then makes it even easier. You just say, okay, let's turn around because this looks like ass. You have to identify. And I'm not saying the whole shot looks like ass. I'm not being harsh. I'm saying this is going to be a quick live stream and we got to get straight to the point. And the point is you got to fix this. You got to fix this because this to me spells trouble. Okay. On her, the lighting, if we're going for beauty light, it is, you get the softness of being in the shade, of being undercover. So that's good. You don't get any harshness in the sun. And this is, yes. Thank you, Andrew. I was trying to be. I realized that sometimes, if I talk to myself like I talk in my head, I would be saying that in my head. I'd be going like, Patrick, what the fuck? Are you kidding? What the fuck are you doing? But here, this is a safe space of learning. So I would say, yeah, I'd say let's try and clean that up. But I would be way harsher on myself. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here we go. Now we're in this little, what are we using? Contacts, lenses? Are those Zeiss contacts, the old ones? I am all too familiar with that shape of that bokeh there. Okay, this one is good. The framing in the commercial, it's a little bit strange that she's pushed so far over, but again, nice soft light, and at this level sort of matches the level in all of the other shots. And I would assume that it sort of matches because you're doing this really, really quickly and you're not doing it over the course of a whole day. Again, another advantage of being light on your feet and being small in crew is you can get this stuff done really quickly. Tomorrow, on the other extreme, we're shooting a job. We've got 6 shots for a 12-hour day. And it's not that long because it takes us that long to do the shots. It's that long because you got to get sign-off from the agency. They're going to want 3 different versions. They're going to want to go from the wide shot, then they want a medium shot, then they want a close-up. That wide to medium to close-up, if they do, I don't know, if they do 2 versions of the lines as they are now because they can't decide on what they want before they hear it on set, you're looking at, I don't know, an hour and a half to do the wide, and then you get an hour and a half to do the close-up and the medium shot, and they're all supposed to be delivered at the same time. Now you have to start thinking, fuck, how am I going to keep this consistent? It's all outside. So one of the advantages of this is it looks like, whoops, I pulled the power cord on my computer. It looks like you know what you're doing. It looks like you know how to match things. So that's one advantage to take away. This is good. I mean, nothing else really. I would probably, I don't know, the look that you're going for, I would probably pull her a little bit more centered, get her face a little bit more out here, Rose a little bit over here. There's a lot of space in that zone, and my computer shit itself. Note to self, keep these screenshots small. That's what I would say there. But here you got good, I mean, at least you got those little highlights in the background. You got that little breakup pattern that I was talking about before in your overhead. This is what you want. You want that level of darkness to highlight ratio. You don't want big blotches of highlight or else you're making it hard on yourself. And here we go. This is my point. How do you fix this? Okay, let's say we needed this particular angle. We had to get there. We're doing beauty. I would probably go a little bit less tree of life. A little bit, even though I'm someone that likes to look up at individuals. Just slightly up. This is probably, we're getting in that extreme world. And what you open yourself up to is something, again, that you don't really have the capabilities of overcoming. You can't control the sky, so show less of it. Either get her right here. I can't remember what she's doing, but if she's just standing there, put her on her knees, and you get on your knees, and then you look up into this, you make that the top of the frame, or just frame down and get this stuff in the background. Now that's a nice looking image, but this one sells you know, any blown out thing, I just, in my mind, it's like, oh, damn it. Oh, we fucked it. So to get around that, I would, again, it looks like you're in the opposite direction. So it looks like this is the angle that we would have seen in this one. You're shooting now, you've swapped sides, so she's behind you. That's what it looks like. I could be mistaken, but that's what it looks like. Okay, so that's what I would do there. I would probably level up just a little bit. I'd probably back it off because, of course, as you get on a wider lens, the features start to distort. You know, it's a little bit less flattering on the ladies. You know, as you get wider, it does make you appear, there's that sweet spot where it makes you appear slightly skinnier. And as you get above 50 mil, it starts to fatten you up a little bit. So, I don't know, somewhere in that 27 to 40 range, I sort of like. Okay, let's go with the next one. This is woman walking. Now, I brought this one up because this is maybe we're a half stop over, maybe. But this is, well, probably more than a half stop. Probably stop a full stop down. So let's go like this. And you say, well, Patrick, it's starting to look crunchy. Yeah, that's crunchy because of, not because of what the camera's capable of. That's crunchy because of what we've already done to it. But you want to expose just a little bit down because it's starting to look a little bit high back here in this area. Oops, why aren't I writing? I'm not writing because I'm on the curves. In here, it's looking a little bit hot. But her level in that highlight, that's pretty good, right? And like I said, just maybe a half stop down. And then let's say, I don't know what the crew situation is, but let's say you did have some money. Let's say you had enough money for a gaffer and someone to hold, or a grip to hold a 4x bounce. What side, looking at the sun as it is now, if there is anyone that is listening to this live stream, what side are you going to put the 4x bounce? Where is the 4x bounce going to come from to make this thing look better? Anybody? I'm going to leave it with you. I'm just going to check this message to make sure this person's coming. All right, where are we putting the bounce? Did anybody say? Holy shit, we nailed it. Look at us. Oh my God. Oh, thank God. We've learned something. We've taken something away from these hours of talking about this. Yes, you want it from over here. You got hot, sunny highlight over there. Find a spot. You know, like you got all this stuff in the background. You can find a spot where the guy or the girl who's holding the bounce can get some level of sun. And we've talked about it in a walk and talk. A 4x, bouncing a 4x in a shot this big is always going to feel like shit. And you think to yourself, no, well, Patrick said, you know, you use the sun and then you bounce with the 4x, or not with a 4x. You use the sun on the same side as the bounce, and then it's just going to look good. If you put up a 4x here, it's going to look, I hate to say it's going to look like ass, because it will look, maybe it will look better. It's a hell of a lot more work to get it looking good, and it's a lot more skill. And it's a lot more skill on your part and the person holding the bounce to maintain the level. The bigger the bounce, the more natural it's going to feel, right? Very rarely are you in the forest and you come upon a 4x4 of poly. It doesn't really happen. Something that small that has that much level. Sometimes the field opens up and there's this giant sky that opens up and you just happen to walk into it as you're holding a box of lavender. And life is beautiful and you don't hate yourself. Sometimes that happens. Which feels like a 12x12. So bigger was always better. To walk and talk with a 12x12, probably not going to happen. If you've got any cash, you've got 2 people, you get 2 grips to walk it with an 8x. That's what I would do. Walk an 8x bounce. Or position it far enough away, get like a lame, which is that gold and silver, super punchy. Super, super punchy. Get that and you put it in the sun, somewhere behind you. You set this whole stage up where it's getting hit with direct sun, and it is going to be super punchy. Like you can get, depending on the level of light in the sky and the angle of it, I mean, it can be more than an 18K. You can bounce the shit out of that, And then you put up a frame in between you and the person. You put it far enough away so the exposure doesn't change as you're walking. In this shot, if it's only 2 or 3 steps, you can have it probably 15 feet away and you won't get a big exposure change as they're walking towards you. So that's if you got the cache. Then, of course, if you got the cache, you're running a 12 by 12 at least, maybe a 20 by 12 of neg down this side to darken this side up, right? And if you're going to do that, if you are going to neg that side, I would probably take 2 or 3 steps this way. Can any of everybody see that drawing? Oh, it's too light. It's too thin. Let's go bigger. Something like that, right? You're going to want to just take a few steps that way. I need to find a color that doesn't suck for this background. But yes, that's it. If the most you have access to is a 4x4, just be careful that you don't get it too close and you get too much punch from the 4x4. You still want it to feel natural. Almost better to go without the 4x than with it. Okay, I brought this one up because, again, we are in that shade world, which goes back to our overhead mode, which changes the way that we should be thinking. We should be thinking, or I would be thinking, okay, we're in this shaded area. Shaded area to me means one thing. I need to not blow out the background. That's my main problem. So wherever that sun is hitting, that's where I need to be. So if you were in this situation and say you wanted you needed this particular background. Man, that fucking green sucks. What is going to stand out here? Pink. Yeah. Okay, say you needed that particular background back here. You absolutely, desperately needed, for some reason, that particular plant. I would put, this shot is small enough that you could probably do this with a 4x frame. Just soften it off. Doesn't have to be much. It's probably, a stop and a half to get that back. And then it just isn't clipping. Then in the grade, you power window this, you make this stand out, and you bring everything else down, the squish and drop, right? We're starting to get in that world where all these things are connecting, all of our techniques. This would be a classic squish and drop. If you didn't need this background, right? Say you didn't need this particular background. What I would do is, it looks like the sun is coming this way, right? I would take the camera, I would take this bucket of shit, I would put it just here. This is where the bucket goes, where it's just catching a little bit of this light that's hitting this. The camera is going to come now over here, and we're going to shoot this way. And we're going to use a 4x frame, and we're going to take this big soft source, and we're going to let that flow over the apples, as it is now. See how it's coming over the apples? That's from the gap in the trees. But you'd get more out of it if you actually used that light, and this would get darker just by ratios to each other. The background would get darker, the apples would get brighter, you'd get even more contrast on the apples themselves, more contrast, more shape, more interest. Ryan, I feel like all of the shots could have been exposed down to help with those highlights throughout. Yes, that is something I would agree with. And then I would definitely expose everything a little bit down. Looks like everything's just a little bit hot, and it looks like everything's been exposed off of a monitor. So it's almost like you just got to be careful. Especially, it's almost like if you have a cheaper camera that doesn't have as much dynamic range, and you don't have access to something that will instantly allow you to view clipped highlights, a light meter is even more important, because then you test it. I know if I don't know, I'm shooting with a GH5, never shot with one, never held one, never seen one, but I would imagine it doesn't have as much dynamic range as an Alexa. What to do? I'd say, okay, let me find out in my head for my own sanity, when does it clip? When is there no more information? I go to the rental house, I shoot a chart, I overexpose that chart by 1-stop increments, and I use my light meter, and I say, okay, this is 1 stop over, can I bring it down? Yes. This is 2 stops over, can I bring it down? Yes. This is 3 stops over, can I bring it down? No. Okay, what about 2.5? Okay, 2.5 I can still bring down. Then I know, once I come out here to this little scene, if my lens is set for 2.8 here, and I spot this, and it's 3 stops over, I know I'm fucked. And I know I have to come up with a solution, right? I either take away light from up here, or add more light in here, so I can balance the levels more, right? The shittier the camera, the more diligent you have to be about exposure. Alexa, you turn the fucking thing on, and you shoot. Okay, Ricardo, squish and drop. Can someone please explain? There is, if somebody knows where it is, this is the bummer with Patreon. I can't remember where the podcast is where I talk about the squish and drop, or where we go over it, but it is in there somewhere. The short answer is basically you lessen the contrast and you drop the offset inside of Resolve. So you are just bringing the, if you were looking at the histogram and it was looking like, what is this, like that, right? As you start, you just want it to look a little bit more like that, right? If that makes any sense, the histogram. You just want to open up those shadows just a little bit, but then you want the whole level to stay the same. So you're squishing the image by lessening the contrast. You're bringing everything towards the middle, and then you're dropping the whole thing so that your originally exposed values are staying in the same spot that you want them. That is the squish and drop. Okay. Let's see. Ben, same process for shooting log with a light meter? Same process for shooting anything. Log doesn't matter for a light meter. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Log makes no difference. Light meter, that's the beauty about a light meter. It does not lie. It needs no information. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ah, damn. Okay, this one we didn't get. All right, this clipped skin is no bueno. Clipped skin is no bueno, and also if you're doing, say you're doing like a high-end commercial, a lot of the times if it is beauty, especially if it's beauty, they will, the cinematographer and the DP will be involved in wardrobe choices, not stylistically, but for colors to make sure things don't, there's no moire, there's no patterns that come up. So you're involved in those conversations. If I was involved in this conversation in pre-production, I would say, we're going to be out in the sun and you want this person wearing white or a light color, it's going to look like ass. Is there any way we can do something different? Is there any way we can go with a darker tone that isn't near as reflective? Because what's happening is this is going to clip before this, and this is going to bounce all over the place. You're going to get so much level coming off of this relative to this dark background that even if you lost a stop from the background, you'd still probably be clipped here. So I would say don't do this. One way, easy way to avoid clipping, if we go back to the light meter thing, you come out here and you take an incident meter right next to this lady's face, you're never going to clip. It may look like shit because the background is going to be all dark, but you'll never get this problem, right? You'll never get that. Now the framing is good. You got this leading line of the fence down here. You're shooting into darkness, right? You're definitely shooting the right way. You just got to expose that skin properly. And so say we were doing this shot. This is a good example because it comes up from time to time. Say we're doing this shot, and then we're going to punch in and do a close-up of this shot. Even in the world's biggest budget, well, maybe not the world's biggest budget, like if you're shooting Marvel, you could easily take care of this with some fly swatter rigs up here, taking care of the sun and knocking it down. But if you're in your normal commercial budget level, you're not going to be able to do anything with the sun, with the direct sun in this situation. All you can do is schedule it and hope for the best. But then when you go in for the close-up, if you go from full sun to close-up, you can use a little bit of diffusion and still get away with it. It's just all about balancing the ratios. You can't go to a quarter grid. You can't go, you definitely can't go full grid, or you can't go something thick. But this is where you could sneak in a highlight, or you could sneak in a half soft frost for that direct sun when you go in for the close-up. You just have to be careful about what you're shooting into then. But this is how you would shoot this shot on a normal budget commercial. You would just shoot it because you can see the ground, so you'd be able to see stands, you'd be able to see frames. You just have to expose for that skin properly. And that's through false color or whatever. Yeah, okay, next. This one, I only brought this one up because if you're doing the schedule, this is not the time to shoot this. Whatever this is not the time. Because this is full lit up sunlight. This super dark in here. This is exposed properly, but in terms of lighting, this would look way, way, way nicer if the sun was, if the sun was behind this building. You'd get more level in here, you'd get less level out here, the contrast wouldn't be so great, you wouldn't get her getting smashed with this front light. Even if it doesn't work for this because the way the door opens. But if say this spa habitat was over here, written on the window, you'd want to shoot the other way, from this way, so that this was all backlit. So our woman coming in, instead of being front lit like she is now, we just want a little bit of edge on her, right? That's what you'd be going for. So flip all the way around, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. Ooh, 5 minutes. Here we go. Okay, product shot. This is, we've talked many a time about this. Everyone should be experts by now. Any guesses as to what we should be doing here? How we should attack this lighting? What we may find a little bit off-putting about this product shot? We want this thing that this lady has created out of apples and lavender and, you know, the scent of a horse or something. We want that to look beautiful and to feel elegant. And how do you do that? It's not with front light, right? We only want to highlight what we want to highlight. And I'm sure there's people out there saying, but Patrick, this is, you know, we just saw the lady walk in with her bucket of apples in the daytime. We want it to be daytime. You can still have lots of shape in the day. You know, you don't have to fill everything to go in to be moody. It doesn't have to be dark and moody to be shaped. If you know what I'm saying. The master of shape. If there is any doubt, if you ever have thoughts about what something should look like, Wally Pfister, his commercials, there is more shape in his commercials than anybody else's. Maybe Wally and Chase. There was a time when Chase was doing ads where just so much shape in every angle. It had been thought out, and there was so much darkness, even in daytime stuff, but it didn't feel dark. It just feels interesting. So look up Wally Pfister stuff. I think he's at Reset. Yeah, so to do this maybe a different way, a different approach than it is as it is right now. Backlight, just out of frame, overhead, edge here. You can sort of see it there. Edge here. And then, I mean, if we're talking product shots, we're selling the product. The product itself becomes the star. The hands holding it, they don't know what to do. This lady's never been in a commercial, I'm assuming, or doesn't know, or isn't aware of what it takes to make a good photograph and to help these things sell. And this is sometimes you'll get pushback from agency or client. Product shots is the one time still I have found where the DP is still the person who's in charge. Because if you can deliver something that's strong, people will trust you. And the more you work with those people, the more they trust you. And it's especially true with product stuff. Because we know how to make this stuff look good. You want this thing to look like shit? You position the people's hands however you want. I'm telling you right now, it's going to look like ass. I'm just warning you. But the hands, the positioning of the hands and the positioning of the bottle, that requires someone who knows how to do this. Like, it all comes down, it's not just the light. It's how we position things to the light. It's the blocking, it's the angle, it's the camera, it's the lens. All of these things are domains that you should be in charge of. So this is why I would say, yeah. I would direct these people's hands. Her hand is good. This hand, we'd probably want it to come back down the bottle a little bit so that it wasn't blocking the backlight. We wouldn't fill it in at all, except maybe, you know, like you're shooting a car. Maybe you fill it in for just reflection. That's what I would do. Backlight, kill all of this. We don't care about this. It's distracting. You want something on the apples, you maybe hit it with a little dado. You just accent it. You don't front light it. So that's what I would say. And then in the background, I'd probably want another one of these, maybe make it bigger, more variance in the background. Like this highlight's nice, but it's a little bit too hot. You know, it's all in little measures. Okay, next one. This headshot, this is a classic spa shot, and this is the easiest shot to give it some shape to. The easiest shot to give shape to, you're flat, you're dead on, you're right overhead. You just gotta, again, mood without being dark, right? Just shape without being dark. It's all, you can play the ratio so close to each other. Half stop, full stop. You know, one stop difference is not going to make that much of a difference in terms of darkness versus level, but it will give it some shape. So I would say more neg, less on this side of her face, more from above. So you get this shadow going across their face. You know, right now it feels like the light is coming this way. I would want it a little bit more angled down to get less on this, and then I probably flag it off of the white towel in the background. So you'd have the light, let's see, if we're sitting here, you'd have the light this way as opposed to flat on the ground this way, what it feels like now, because then you're lighting up that whole side. Whereas if you go up a little bit, you're less of this. You don't want so much of that in this particular shot. You want more projecting at her. And then you can bring in flags to feather this bit off, right? Feather that light off, because the shot is so close you can get right in there. And then, of course, neg. Yes, neg on that side. And off and away you are. Okay, this one. This is our shot. This is the angle. This is the, we're looking at feet. So not super exciting, but in the context of the commercial, this is what we've nailed it. Right? You got this light back here that's coming down over these chairs, light, dark. Then you got this nice little shadow here running down her leg. You got a little bit of wrappiness coming around. See that gradual? If there's anything to take away from this, it's gradual is best. The harshness feels like it's not thought out, in my opinion. Gradual transitions, thickness in the toe is really, and I'm not talking about her toes, is really where I think the expertise is shown. And that's the stuff that I like. I like stuff like that. And this is a good low level. Like, see how there's all that detail in there, but it's not bright? You know, there's lots of stuff in there. Oh, maybe because I'm looking at a dimmer monitor. Let's see if I brighten this up, I'll probably look like shit. Yeah, it could be a little darker. Could be even down a little bit more. But again, the whole thing. I think, but however you're exposing this, don't trust that. Just do it a little bit darker. Or just get used to it and do it a little bit darker. But I like this shot. You got the highlight here. You're looking at these little bucket things. It's good. Okay, next. Oh, we've already talked about that one. That's everything. Okay. That's it. We made it through. Blue Ford Delta. My man, back in it again. Or lady. Could be anything Blue Ford Delta. Can you do a Patreon or full podcast all around creating thickness in the toe? I think we've done 146 episodes. I mean, starting with the Max Goldman one. That is the look that I like. And I think that's the look of the majority of people on the show. I'm trying to think of a person who didn't really have that look. Maybe, did anybody not have that look? I mean, that's the sort of style now. That's the style that people are going for. Or at least the people that I like, that's their style. And that's what I'm trying to incorporate. Trying to think. Maybe if you look at Dimitri's stuff, he's sort of, and he just comes to mind because he's brand new. Well, he's relatively new in the podcast. Probably Dimitri's stuff would be the one that I would vibe with the least. But I mean, hearing his story about how he gets it all done is even different. Okay. Yeah, so Blue Ford Delta, I think all of the things that I talk about, all the techniques are there to try and get it thickness in the toe. Like all the little tricks. Shooting into backlight gets you more in the toe. You shoot front light, you're gonna get more in the shoulder. Just naturally. So I can try. I mean, if you got specific examples that you want to see of how to do it, I can try. But I think that's what we're doing here in the stream. Okay, this one's from, should we go back to this view for the questions? Timothy Morgan, any tips for landscape architecture? Subject matters. No? Any tips? I always use people take the piss out of me for it. I always use street lamps. Only because of the contrast thing. I've talked about it before. They're easy subjects. They sort of stand in for humans. They allow you to then, if you can take a picture of a street lamp and it looks boring behind it, generally you can walk around the street lamp until you find a background that gives you something. And I think that's how I picked it up, is just by looking. You take a picture of a street lamp and you expose it properly and it's sort of dusky. You can get a little bit of interest back there, but then if you add another layer, if you add a building behind it, if that building has a little light on it, if that little light is slightly dimmer, it just makes it easy to practice looking for those things and helping to train your eye. But no, apart from that, this is something which could be fun. I have been talking to Phase One. Phase One is a big medium format camera company, and I've been trying for a while now. I've been trying to do a series like, what's the guy's name now? Gregory Peck is the actor. Then there's another dude that does these big, elaborate film lighting shots. Someone will know his name for sure. Gregory something. Townsend? Gregory Townsend. No, something. He's a photographer. So I've been trying to convince people I've got this idea to run with. And that could be happening with Phase One, which would be awesome because they got a big-ass camera that I think would be able to handle it, and I got some ideas. So that'd be cool because it's all lighting, right? It's basically the podcast in a single frame. And then of course you can Photoshop the shit out of things. Okay, Ryan. Hey, Patrick, random question, but how are you pulling frames from projects with movement that are so clear and sharp, yet finding it difficult to pull some from projects? What do you mean, like for the live stream? For the live stream, I'm just taking a screenshot of Vimeo using whatever it is, Control-Alt-3. That's all I'm doing. Adam, how did your rehouse Leicas turn out? Still coming. Still coming. But to say that I'm excited would be a gross understatement. Full frame. What did that be? F1.4 is T1.6. Full frame. Leica. Woo. Have you reached out to Morgan Cooper to get him on the podcast? Alec, never heard of him. But if he's good, let me know. We're doing the next round. New York City. Blue 4 Delta. I'll refine the question and make it more specific. I'm in. I'm ready. Yes, Gregory Crudson. Fucking nailed it. Atta baby, Elliot. Or to clarify more, are you finding yourself experimenting with different shutter angles lately, or going to one more than another? I don't do the shutter experimentation. The only time I do is for fashion stuff. Fashion, I'll always do 90 because people want it a little bit crisper. Okay, 11:08. We made it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That is it. Many thanks for the support. You got questions. We don't got answers, but I can definitely make some up. So get them in. Get your projects in for the next round. Stuart, enjoy the conversation with Stuart this week. And like I say, reach out. Say hello. Say you heard him on the podcast. There is no better intro, no more flattering an intro than saying, hey, I liked what you said. Didn't sound like you were a dipshit. Do you have any work for me? And do it in the style that Denny said to do it. No better person than Stuart at the moment. He's crushing it. So, okay. Ricardo, check out my buddy McGregor. Oh, McGregor. Yeah, I know McGregor. I know him back from the old DSLR days when he used to post his... Yeah, he used to be the guy. The internet guy. He was like the original Vimeo person, McGregor. He was doing all sorts of crazy shit. He did that short film that was supposed to come out for like 6 years. He was the guy. Anyway, yeah, maybe we get him on. We'll see. Okay, that's going to do it. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Have fun in the world. And watch out for Instagram tomorrow because I'm going to be posting some shit that will probably get me... Oh, actually, story for another time. I actually got in trouble. I got my first notice to take shit down off the podcast. So it looks like the Patreon group, you guys may be on the right spot for future breakdown episodes. Because now I'm getting to that point where NDAs have to be signed and fucking black sets start coming up and I can't share any of that shit except in the Patreon group. So look out. Fuck the Mayweathers. Okay. See you later, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.